Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump appearing this morning at a deposition with New York's Attorney General in a civil investigation. He refused to answer questions, invoking his Fifth Amendment rights over and over again against self-incrimination. The Trump organization being investigated for using, quote, fraudulent or misleading valuations to get loans and tax benefits for their properties.
This comes days after the FBI searched his Mar-a-Lago home, purportedly for classified information potentially being stored on the property. Today, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that that warrant to search Mar-a-Lago was based on intelligence provided by an inside informant who identified the classified documents that Trump had and told agents where to find them. Some Republicans are calling the search politically motivated and are promising to ramp up oversight of the Biden administration following the search. So let's bring in attorneys Lisa Bloom and Brian Claypool. Thank you both. I want to start with today's events with the president, former president, pleading the Fifth and what he has said about doing so in the past. Here's some of that.
Taking the Fifth. I think it's disgraceful.
Fifth Amendment. The mob takes the Fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
Fifth Amendment. Horrible. Horrible.
He pleaded the Fifth, and that was the end. We never heard about him again.
All right, Brian, if you're innocent, why plead the Fifth, as you just heard him say?
Well, hey, Marla, great to be with you. I did a little bit of research, and I think he said that back in 2016, before he was besieged with the Mueller investigation, the illegal FISA warrants, and now the day before this ambush in Mar-a-Lago. So, look, he said that years ago in a different context. I think that any responsible lawyer would have told him to do what he did today. Why? Because this was a civil case brought by the state attorney general in New York, and there was a corresponding criminal investigation that was ongoing with the Manhattan district attorney. So he did what every responsible, prudent person would do under those circumstances. And by the way, that's a constitutional right to plead the Fifth.
Lisa, it is, of course, a constitutional right. He had every right to do it. Didn't have to plead the Fifth, though. He also had the right to answer. What do you read into that decision?
Look, it's obvious that Donald Trump has no principles and no values. He says whatever is expedient in the moment. It turns out that actually way back in 1990, he pleaded the Fifth multiple times in his divorce with Ivana Trump, so he didn't have to answer questions about whether he had committed adultery. And he made those broad statements. They weren't limited to one case. Only the guilty plead the Fifth. Only mobsters plead the Fifth. And now that's what he has done over and over again today. Yes, he has the right to do it, but he has to live with the statements that he made, and it certainly does not look good for him. And by the way, he pleaded the Fifth in a civil case, which is less common than people pleading the Fifth in a criminal case.
All right, so he's got a lot going on right now. He pleads the Fifth today. We've been watching the January 6th hearings in which he is being investigated, Brian. Now, 48 hours ago or just over, we're seeing the search of Mar-a-Lago, his estate in Florida. You know the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire? No?
This is a complete ambush. I mean, come on, Marla. Who really cares about confidential documents 18 months after President Trump left office? All of a sudden, we have to send 48 agents down to Mar-a-Lago. Wow. What did they find in Melania's closet?
Well,
what did they find in that safety box? I mean, this is really ridiculous. Well, this is an example of our justice system, again, being used as a political missile to try to stop somebody from running for office. And that directly contravenes the moral fiber of our country.
But Brian, how do you know that? How do you know what they found? We haven't seen the search warrant. We haven't seen the evidence.
Question.
How do you know? That's a big
us
allegation that you're making there.
Okay, where's the probable cause affidavit then, Alex? You've now sent 48 agents to an ex-president's Mar-a-Lago estate. Show us the probable cause affidavit. and let's take a look at the integrity of the declarations and affidavits that supported this. Let's take a close look, for example,
Lisa,
at this magistrate.
I guess you know better than the federal judge who reviewed the probable cause affidavit, which is for those who are not lawyers. Wait a second, I'm talking, which is for those who are not lawyers. That's when the police write down under the penalty for perjury all of the reasons that they have. And you know what? This is going to be such an easy case because they went in, they seized boxes of documents, and if they contained classified information, there's also tape of Donald Trump not very long ago saying anybody who mishandles classified information is not fit for office. And it's also a violation of the law. And to say, who cares? You know what? I care if people running for office actually comply with the law or think that they are above the law. Apparently, there was a year of negotiations where Trump could have returned these documents. He refused to do it. And guess what? No one is above the law. I'm old enough to remember when Republicans actually cared about law and order.
Well, you know, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, appointed, of course, by President Biden himself. So has he compromised his role as Attorney General, you think, Lisa?
I'm sorry, somebody else was talking, but I think that Merrick Garland has been very, very careful. And people on the left say too slow going after Trump. I think that people at the highest levels of the DOJ understand it is a very big deal to go after a former president, and they have dotted every I and crossed every T. And again, a federal judge signed off on this. They had to have probable cause. That doesn't mean he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't know that yet, but it's going to be so simple because they're going to have the documents. I guess he keeps paper documents. Most of us do things electronically, but he took 15 boxes of documents. He wasn't supposed to take any documents. That was clearly a violation of the law. He was warned. He chose to do it anyway, so this was knowing. And if he took documents he wasn't supposed to take, especially classified documents, I think he's in a world of trouble.
Of course, we don't know if that's all that this is about. Most of what we know about this so far is what Donald Trump's attorney has said. The FBI has barely said anything, which is usually their process, with that big exception of what happened with James Comey right before the 2016 election, which some people say may have swayed that election. Brian, to you, though, just from a legal liability perspective, there's a lot of different things coming at Trump at the same time. Do you think he's potentially in legal or civil trouble here?
We've been saying that for like 5 years now, and nothing has happened. He's never been indicted at all. So if I look into my crystal ball, the answer is going to be no again. One last point I want to make. You just ran a story about a 26-year-old police officer off duty murdered because of another radical Democrat using the justice system to promote a political agenda. And that's exactly what's going on in Mar-a-Lago. We've got child predators roaming the streets. We've got wife beaters roaming the streets. Why are we using resources, federal resources, to try to go after Trump to stop him?
Because the president is not above the law.
Unfortunately, because of our breaking news, we got to go.
Right.
This is a great discussion. We could probably do it for hours. Thank you both. We'll be right back.